در گفتگو همان که در زمان امام شهیدمون این مسئله رو مطرح کرده بودیم، الان هم آماده ایم که به دنیا این اطمینان رو بدیم که ما به دنبال سلاح هسته‌ای نیستیم، ما به دنبال ناآرامی در منطقه نیستیم.
Stop scrolling right now. The president of Iran just stood at a podium and officially surrendered the regime's nuclear ambitions to Donald Trump. The political establishment is absolutely furious that peace is actually happening.
ناآرام کننده این منطقه اسرائیل که به دنبال اون نقشه در حقیقت اسرائیل بزرگه و به طرق مختلف داره توطئه میکنه که جنگ و ناآرامی و اختلاف رو در منطقه هم زنده نگه داره. قطعا ما و کسانی که در مذاکرات دارن شرکت میکنن به هیچ وجه از اون عزت و سربلندی کشور در قبال اون.
Wait, did you actually realize the magnitude of what just happened? The Iranian president is literally standing in front of his own people, conditioning them to accept absolute defeat. He is publicly signaling that they are ready to give up the idea of nuclear weapons permanently. This is a massive, historic capitulation that the mainstream media is absolutely terrified to report accurately. For years, the so-called foreign policy experts claimed that military pressure would only harden Iran's resolve and cause World War III. Instead, the relentless economic blockade and the absolute destruction of their naval infrastructure have completely broken the regime's spirit. They aren't negotiating from a place of power. They are begging for a lifeline. This proves that peace through overwhelming strength actually works. When you completely obliterate a regime's military capacity and choke off their money supply, they have absolutely no choice but to surrender their most prized geopolitical asset.
And keep their highly enriched uranium.
No, we get the highly enriched. We will get it. We don't need it. We don't want it. We'll probably destroy it after we get it, but we're not going to let them have it.
Listen to the absolute lack of hesitation in his voice. President Trump isn't tiptoeing around diplomatic buzzwords. He bluntly states, we will get it, we don't need it, we don't want it, we'll probably destroy it. This is the exact opposite of the disastrous Obama-era nuclear deal, where the U.S. literally sent pallets of untraceable cash to a hostile regime while allowing them to secretly maintain their enrichment infrastructure. Trump is treating the Iranian leadership like a defeated adversary, not an equal negotiating partner. Notice how completely unfazed he is by the online hysteria. Over the weekend, the internet was completely flooded with fake news and leaked drafts claiming America was about to capitulate. The war hawks and the neocons were absolutely losing their minds, desperate to keep the military-industrial complex churning. But Trump completely bypassed the media apparatus, holding the line until the absolute maximum concession was extracted, the physical surrender and destruction of the highly enriched uranium.
The sense that we got on this call earlier today, Mike, is that if President Trump doesn't get what he wants in this agreement, there's not going to be a deal. He either wants the deal that has been put forward by U.S. negotiators, including U.S. Special Envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, or ultimately it's not going to be signed by the Trump administration. So a lot of those details to work out in the days ahead, and you're going to hear a lot of back and forth, a lot of propaganda coming from the regime. What's important to look at is what's actually on the paper and then what can actually be implemented.
Did you catch the specific ultimatum laid out in this report? The anchor explicitly states that if the Trump administration doesn't get every single thing they want, there simply will not be a deal. This is the definition of leverage. The United States is perfectly willing to walk away from the table, while the Iranian regime literally cannot survive another month of this devastating blockade. Notice the sheer panic among the Washington elite regarding this hardline strategy. The political class is completely addicted to endless, drawn-out wars that enrich defense contractors. They despise the idea of an America First president actively finishing a conflict and returning to a baseline of peace. By keeping the B-2 bombers completely fueled and ready to launch kinetic strikes, the administration gave the Ayatollah a brutal binary choice: completely give up the nuclear dust, or lose the rest of your military infrastructure by Friday night.
I'm absolutely upset because the economic pressure from the closure of the Strait of Hormuz is falling on the people. Those who work at the docks, for example, are now almost all unemployed. If this strait is reopened, the economy will improve.
Before the war, conditions were much better. Now, because of the war, the missile attacks and some migration, with some people leaving Tehran, the economic situation has become disrupted. Business conditions were disrupted. And now, as you can see, the situation is not good.
Look very closely at the faces of the actual Iranian citizens on the streets of Tehran. This man is openly admitting to a camera that the economic pressure has become entirely unbearable and that the port workers are completely unemployed. You have to understand how dangerous it is to speak out against the economy inside a brutal theocracy. The regime's reckless decision to try and weaponize the Strait of Hormuz completely backfired, destroying their own domestic economy instead of hurting the West. The everyday Iranian people are absolutely exhausted by decades of radical leadership pouring their national wealth into terror proxies and nuclear ambitions while the citizens starve. This internal civil unrest is the ultimate pressure point. The mullahs didn't agree to give up their uranium because they suddenly want peace. They agreed because if the economy collapses any further, their own starving citizens will absolutely overthrow them.
Iran situation, there'll be, I believe, maybe more news coming out a little bit later today on this topic, and I'll leave it to the president to make further announcements on it. Suffice it to say that some progress has been made, significant progress, although not final progress has been made. Ultimately, I remind everybody, and I think this ties into the second question that was asked with relations to it. What is the goal here? The goal here ultimately, the ultimate goal is that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. So we've made some progress over the last 48 hours working with our partners in the Gulf region on an outline that could ultimately, if it succeeds, leave us not just with a completely open straits, and I mean open straits without tolls.
Pay close attention to how Secretary of State Marco Rubio deliberately controls the pacing of this announcement. He is actively tamping down the premature excitement, reminding everyone that while significant progress has been made, the ink is not dry. Notice how he explicitly frames the final goal: an open Strait of Hormuz with absolutely zero tolls, and the permanent eradication of Iran's nuclear weapons ambition. He is publicly establishing the exact benchmark for success, so the regime cannot slowly walk back their commitments in private. This is a highly coordinated diplomatic freeze-out. The administration is signaling to the Middle Eastern allies, specifically the Gulf nations involved in the historic Abraham Accords, that the United States will not accept half measures or temporary 60-day ceasefires. The blockade remains active, the economic chokehold remains tight, and the pressure will not be released until the nuclear material is physically removed from Iranian soil. The war machine is furious because peace is actually profitable for the people, not the politicians. Hit subscribe, drop your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next breakdown.